Hello, I am concerned about recent UAP disclosure narratives and a conversation regarding psionics. If you don't know what UAP disclosure is or psionics, that's okay. I'll try my best to explain it to you. But this video is really for someone who has gone through the UFO rabbit hole, let's say, from 2017 onwards. 2017 is when the New York Times published an article by Leslie Kean, Ralph Blumenthal, and another author, Helene Cooper. It was all about a secret government program to study UFOs. This secret government program was administered by Robert Bigelow, and it centered around the testimony of Lou Elizondo, a director of the secret program, or so he says, or so some people say, and there is a lot of debate about whether or not Lou Elizondo was actually a government employee in charge of a UFO study, or if he was a government employee doing extracurricular activities. Now, this doesn't really matter, because what actually matters is the claims made within public spaces and the decisions made in the wake of them. For example, Lou Elizondo worked with the To the Stars Academy that you might be familiar with. Tom DeLonge and Chris Mellon were part of that brought forward a narrative that UFOs are coming, that there's crashed material, that we can study them. Gary Nolan was sort of involved with that sort of stuff, or perhaps. And so there's all these claims about building spaceships and things like that. They don't pan out. To the Stars Academy seems like it was actually a scam. But then we were distracted in 2023 by David Grush's claims. He was a whistleblower. He's the UFO whistleblower. He claims to understand that there is a secret government program that holds bodies, alien and alien spacecraft, that they're reverse engineering, and there's a cover-up. And what was really important about David Grush was that he brought forward these claims within the context of Congress. He went through a congressional hearing. He made oaths under Congress saying, this is the best intelligence I have. I believe the best intelligence he had looked to people like Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis and things like that. Because what we ended up seeing after all of this movement toward UAP disclosure is actually it surrounds a small group of religious UFO believers like Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal. They really do believe in this narrative, and they're taking steps of activism to bring forward this narrative and let the world know it's credible. But they don't actually have evidence, and they're not actually doing reporting. Stephen Greenstreet has done the best take on this sort of UFO religion activism thing, but it's really well supported by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's AARO report. AARO is the All-Domain, All-Anomaly Resolution Office, and that was set up by Congress to study these claims, to validate these claims or not. And the end of those years of study is an understanding that a small group of people religiously believe UFO claims and believe they're space aliens or interdimensionals or something like that. So in general, I started to become concerned about UAP disclosure narratives and now the emergent conversation about psionics, because the claims made in 2017 about UFOs were the reason why I was able to enter into a PhD program with the explicit credulous research focus on extraterrestrial and non-human intelligence contact and their associations with dreams. Now, I'm a PhD student at the California Institute for Human Sciences within the Integral Noetic Science Department, focused on an anomalous studies concentration. And if they had the UAP studies and consciousness studies concentration, I would have done so at that time. But I didn't, because they didn't have it. So I really leaned in. I wrote my entrance essay. I said, hey, I believe UFOs. I believe non-human intelligence. Let's study them. And they said, sure, let's do it. So I studied there for 2 years, and I started to have concerns about UFO disclosure. Is this really as solid as the whistleblowers and the media make it seem? And my answer is no, it's not as solid. Absolutely not. And it's actually grounds for concern. There's legitimate grounds for concern about conducting authoritative, accredited research in this field of UFO encounters and non-human intelligence. And essentially, the concerns come from an ambiguity of language, right? It's a constructed language. It's UFO, unidentified flying object. That's no longer acceptable. It's now unidentified anomalous phenomena. We don't know what that means, but we actually do know what that means. So there's two things that happen when someone uses language like UAP or non-human intelligence. The first thing that happens is the rational mind is confused. It says, oh, we're dealing with a category of thing that is unknown. Who knows what it is? But the heart and imagination go, I know what that is. That's space aliens. Those are the space aliens that are causing my strange dreams, that are causing my sleep paralysis, that are perhaps providing technology to the world, but that technology is being hidden by the government so that they can make secret profit on it or control or something like that. So I have concerns in general, and my concerns grew deeper and deeper. The more I studied, the more I went, what is the actual foundation of UAP disclosure? What's the academic, philosophic foundation of that? And I looked into who's actually writing about UFO disclosure and why might they believe that UFOs in the sky, lights in the sky, are actually space aliens. Now, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick left the AARO office with one question on his heart, and his question is, why do some people see lights in the sky that they can't identify and jump to the conclusion they're space aliens? And the answer is, some people have powerful dreams that involve space aliens and feel so real, right? They feel so real that there must be an explanation, right? So this is, people call it hypnagogic hallucinations. They call it sleep paralysis. It's not well understood by mainstream science, and therefore it's not well understood by the people who experience it, such as Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch, who is a recent psionic whistleblower talking about his sleep paralysis experiences. So people have these real experiences at night that are ultra real. They're ultra real, and they feel powerful. They're confusing. You're victimized because you're paralyzed, and it's hard to make sense of it. And so when you hear a narrative that there's space aliens flying around, that makes sense. It makes so much sense because Western culture is not talking about the ultra real aspects of dreams. There's beings that are doing things to you, and the beings that are doing things to you look as if they could belong in a spaceship that you think is that light in the sky. And so it makes a lot of sense. To boil it down, to actually know whether or not this understanding is true, we have to look at the claims, right? Who are making these claims about what, right? And so if you actually go, who's making claims about UFO disclosure? Well, it's Leslie Kean, who was a former partner of Bud Hopkins, an abduction researcher. It's Ralph Blumenthal, who wrote the biography on John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist turned abduction researcher. And they wrote about Robert Bigelow's study with the government about UFOs. Robert Bigelow in the 1990s funded John Mack, Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs. These are abduction researchers to conduct their research. He funded them to a lot of money, actually, and set up their careers and set up this situation. So we believe that a light in the sky might be a vehicle of UFO occupants who abduct people because Robert Bigelow believed it. Why did Robert Bigelow believe it? Well, he was an experiencer. He had little men in his room do things to him. That's what he told Joe Rogan. That's why he believed John Mack. That's why he believed Bud Hopkins, because he's an experiencer. And he said, this is legitimate. This is true. Here's a lot of money to study it. We need to go to the government to study. And he ended up convincing other people. John Mack ended up convincing other people about these things. They have authority. They had credentials. They're a billionaire. John Mack, head of Harvard psychiatry. So there's a lot of convincing of people that these sleep paralysis and other dream phenomena were not dreams because they're real. So this is a big deal for me as someone who studies dreams and extraterrestrial contact. We have to really get clear as to what we're doing. In general, I'm very, very concerned about the influence of Mack on UAP disclosure and academics around it. he used identifiable persuasion techniques like hypnosis, like support groups, to elucidate testimony from sleep paralysis experiencers that he used as evidence for space alien abduction to his personal financial benefit, because he's promoting a book where he had $250,000 advance on his book, right? And he's introducing, these topics, and it's questionable at best, right? And so what narrative you end up hearing nowadays is John Mack's a hero. John Mack was a great guy who believed experiencers, and Harvard put him up for a tribunal like the Spanish Inquisition, and he never got a fair trial. He was just dragged through the mud. But actually, if you are using hypnosis to convince sleep paralysis experiencers that their sleep paralysis was actually space alien abduction, and you use hypnosis to convince them to go on Oprah to share their sleep paralysis sexual nightmares as evidence for space alien abduction, and if you earned $250,000 off of that immediately, I say, hey, that's grounds to examine. That's grounds to go, are you treating these people like a psychiatrist? Are you treating them like a researcher? Are you treating them like a pimp? Right? That's the question I have. His name's John Mack, for God's sake. So those are the questions I have about it. And most people go, oh, well, he was treated unfairly by the mainstream. But that narrative, actually, if you look to where that narrative was established, it's Danny Sheehan. Danny Sheehan establishes it. He's the head of the New Paradigm Institute. He's a name. He's a talker, right? He's a talker. And he leaked details of Mack's inquiry with Harvard to the press against Mack's wishes, which forced the hand of a number of people. And so Mack never actually was questioned in good faith by his academic community. He just wasn't. It was derailed by Danny Sheehan in a claim that he was standing up for justice for experiencers or something like that. It seems unethical. It seems almost like a crime to me that a lawyer could do that to his client and then take on John Mack's legacy with the New Paradigm Institute name. What's going on there? What does Karen Austin of John E. Mack Institute have to say about Danny Sheehan, right? These are questions I have, and no one really wants to answer them. One of the reasons why John Mack is very concerning is because he couldn't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. Couldn't tell the difference between dreams, sleep paralysis, hallucinations, and illegitimate alien abduction experiences. And we know that for a fact because Donna Bassett posed as an experiencer. She made up things. She was like, I don't believe this guy. Let's see how far I can get making up these stories. She was welcomed into his group. She was welcomed through hypnosis. And she was so convincing, John Mack said, well, she's probably an experiencer, experienced it legitimately, and is in denial about it. This is where the leaders of, she had this whole story about the leaders of of Russia and America got together on the UFO and had visions of apocalypse and changed their minds, right? And so it's a wild story. John Mack believed it. John Mack didn't believe Donna Bassett afterward about the fact she made it up. Right. That's so wild to me. But we're still turning to John Mack's credentials to say this is a legitimate field of study, right? Nearly all academics quote from John Mack, but they don't question his methods and they don't really elevate him as the foundation he is, right? I'm always shocked by how people go like, oh yeah, John Mack was important, but who cares? I'm not a Mackian or something like that. And this is a thing that I've experienced. I go, like none of your claims are based on any credential except for John Mack, right? Like there's no other basis for your claims. And they go, oh, I'm not a Mackian. I don't think that's the case. And I go, well, show me the literature. Show me the literature that you're using to base your claims if it's not John Mack's credentials. Where is it? I haven't seen it. So they all quote from Mack. And so here's a thing you can do. The term ontological shock, track back. Where does ontological shock come from? It actually comes from one of the most concerning passages in John Mack's book, Abduction, where he's talking about using hypnosis to convince sleep paralysis dreamers that their dreams are space alien abduction, right? But it's actually a misquoting from Paul Tillich's 1951 work, Systematic Theology. So anyone who quotes ontological shock in the context of UFOs is actually quoting John Mack. And you'll see how far and insidious his thinking has gotten. Anyone who's talking about UFOs or experiencers talks about ontological shock. One of the things that I've been doing is introducing my concerns, ethical concerns, to my institute. And I've been doing it through a process that has been guided by my dreams and has taken about 6 months to move forward. And I do so slowly. I produced a 200-page document that was titled, let me just bring it up so you can see it. Great. So we've got the ethical implications of unquestioned Mackian Research at CIHS. This is a document I sent to Dr. Sean Esbjörn-Hargens, my program director, regarding the super experiencer study, regarding the role of Mackian thinking in CIHS. The subtitle of this is Risks of Harmful False Memories Caused by Alien Mythologizing in UAP and Experiencer Studies, based on an appeal to authority argument to Johnny Mack's psychiatric credentials and an appeal to emotion based on the trauma of UFO abduction syndrome testimonies, or the risks of anomalous retrocognition. So I explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and the documentation I have, right? I'm just going to cover the table of contents here so you get a sense as to what I submitted, right? This took me about 10 days to write after I realized I was really concerned. I have a whole story. I make definitions about the key concepts. I have premises based in literature. I go, if there is a risk of harmful false memory, then I make these conclusions, these logical conclusions, these syllogisms based on premises from literature. I expand the ethical concerns specifically about activities in CIHS, my school, related in part to named celebrity experiencers like Chris Bledsoe. And I'm talking about the risks of harmful false memories in UAP studies, right? We don't know if UAPs are actually anything at all, but we're studying them as if they were, right? We don't know if it's conflation, false memory, delusion, or what. Yet we're studying it as if the delusions are true. And I think that's dangerous. And I think that's dangerous because we're putting forward people like Chris Bledsoe as advisors and examples for the study we're doing, and yet he can't discern between known and identifiable aircraft and unidentifiable aircraft, which means he's a liar or he's deluded. And that means we can't actually trust his judgment. If we can't trust his judgment, I have to question the judgment of the person who put him forward as an example, and that's my program director, Dr. Sean Esbjörn-Hargens. If I can't trust his discernment and I raise questions about it, I have to go to his bosses, right? Dr. Jeffrey Martin and Dr. Stacy Gomes, who is the president and provost of CIHS, and I have to raise my concerns there. If they don't listen to my concerns, then I have to go to Dr. Nyegin, I'd have to go to Dr. Naira Yegian, who is the Dean of Student Success. And I've gone to all of those people to share these concerns. And I'm waiting to hear back responses to questions I clearly asked, like, will CIHS conduct an ethical inquiry? How would CIHS make statements about celebrity experiencers and support groups? How are the ethics of false memory risk calculated? So these are the questions I've had. Now, Dr. Sean afterwards said, no, this is really long. Why don't you summarize it into 20 pages? And that's really what I did. So I am concerned in particular, like I was saying, about Bledsoe. And I'm going to get to it by moving through some of these documents. So now you can see this other document called The Risk of False Memories in UAP Studies. And this is my ethical and financial leave of absence justification. I stopped being able to really practice with people in a way that felt meaningful to me when I started having these ethical concerns. And by meaningful, I mean financially viable, actually. I was unable to book sessions with people when I was in this kind of funk. And so I said, I can't pay you tuition. I am stuck. I'm frozen as a person, frozen as a professional. I need help out of this. Can you please help me out of this? And they read it. I had a couple conversations. I had a conversation with Jeffrey Martin, Stacy Gomes, Naira Yegian, Sean Esbjörn-Hargens, Jeffrey Mishlove, all about these sorts of things, all about my questions, all about how to do this sort of research. And so I introduce a lot of these concerns in this document, and I provide definitions. I list my concerns. I go, hey, UAP studies may violate dream work ethics. That's one of my major concerns, right? Because we're saying, hey, those dreams aren't dreams. They're actually alien abduction. I say that the encounters might be primarily intrapsychic. There's risk of harmful false memories, and that's actually validated by studies. There seems to be a decentralized industry of alien false memories, and this is where I'm really concerned about the psionic conversation, the whistleblowers, and things like that. I'm concerned about risk of harm to researchers, right? People talk about hitchhiker effects. People talk about going into paranoia. I go, hey, those seem like legitimate risks. Let's actually talk about it, right? I'm saying, hey, UAP studies may perpetuate harmful confusions, particularly the confusion between sleep paralysis dreams and waking memory. So I say, hey, let's resolve this. You know, it's really easy to resolve. All you need to do is update a research policy in the student handbook to integrate International Association of Study of Dream ethical guidelines for dream research. Like literally you're doing dream research, update the policies, right? Update your informed consent guidelines to say, hey, you might actually have a harmful false memory, right? And then I suggest that they write a resource article that addresses some of the topics. And then I suggest a peer support group for students and researchers within the context of the school. So that was submitted about 6 months ago. About half a year ago, right? Half a year ago, I submit that documentation, and I've got 4 conversations out of it. I haven't seen any major movement from the school about it. It's sort of like talking to a teenager dragging their feet. And I was very clear. I'm concerned about risk of harm to human subjects of research that was approved by the IRB of California Institute for Human Sciences. I have raised concerns of harm regarding human subjects of research at California Institute for Human Sciences. I raised those concerns 6 months ago. There has been no discernible action taken by the California Institute for Human Sciences to safeguard their human subjects of risk of harmful false memories. I believe there's a risk. I've shared that information. I've shared the literature, but they've not gotten back to me. And so they've not gotten back to me with a true meaningful action, right? And so the only recourse I have left is to go to their furthest line of grievance definition and grievance process in their booklet. And I've worked with the Dean of Student Success to actually put that forward. And I think I'm somewhere in the process. I don't really know. The communication has updated me. Yeah, they've reviewed it, but I'm not quite sure what that actually means. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm bringing forward this documentation now, because of the deductions as to where they are would indicate that they are choosing to delay response in certain ways. So this document, the third document in the series I've written, is called Grievance Definition Regarding Risk of False Memories to Human Subjects in UAP Studies and Experiencer Research at CIHS. I'm not being unclear here. There's a risk to human subjects at CIHS, at least according to me, a 4.0 student at CIHS who's gone through their programs. I've done the literature reviews on this, and I know it seems like there's a legitimate risk, but there's no discernible action from them, so I have to question why. So here, I thought perhaps I would just read it. Grievance definition regarding risk of false memories to human subjects in UAP studies and experiencer research at CIHS. This document supports the initiation of a grievance process to resolve my concerns about the risk of harmful false memories in human subjects of UAP studies and experiencer research conducted at CIHS through the new integral science concentrations and the Worldwide Initiative for Super Experiencer Research, WISER. I will briefly present the history of my grievance, my actions to resolve my concerns, and my understanding of the Institute's response. I expect that the grievance process will initiate a committee charged with producing official statements from the Institute regarding my grievance, specifically about the risk of harmful false memories in UAP and studies and experiencer research. I request that the grievance committee respond to the questions listed as headings in the section Questions for the Grievance Committee. This document relies upon my last ethical concerns document, Risk of Harmful False Memories in UAP Studies, in which I defined my terms and listed my ethical concerns. In my last document, I bracketed my concerns as abstract and systemic. This document escalates my concerns from abstract to actual. I say that vulnerable subjects, human subjects of WISER, as well as the audience of UAP studies and CIHS, and all public audiences who encounter promotional materials from these projects are presently at risk for harmful false memories. Further, I say that the ongoing relationship between CIHS and Bledsoe through the WISER study puts human subjects at risk for harmful false memories and the Institute at risk for breach of academic integrity. There are two paths forward for me after the grievance process. First, if my concerns are resolved, I will strive to increase my income in order to pay tuition fees by the end of my leave of absence. Second, if my concerns are not resolved, I will then escalate my concerns, possibly through 1, presentation of my document and the CIHS responses to the press and watchdog organizations. 2, discussion with legal counsel to ensure the safety of human subjects in the audience of CIHS research. 3, registration of a complaint with WSCUC for possible violations of accreditation standards and policies. Inadequate response to concern of risk. Nearly 6 months ago, I raised concerns about harmful false memories in human subjects by submitting a document as justification for my leave of absence. Then I engaged in conversation with CIHS administration. The proposed resolution was that I collaborate with Esbjörn-Hargens to establish a best practices white paper under the auspices of the Center for Anomalous and Noetic Studies, which Esbjörn-Hargens informed me could officially begin once I re-enroll. However, the response is inadequate because 1, I raised concerns regarding risk to human subjects in research at CIHS, which should be treated with urgency and seriousness I have not yet seen. 2, I raised direct concerns about Esbjörn-Hargens and my own discernment regarding UAP studies and experiencer research, indicating that we are not capable of resolving these concerns without institutional support. 3, my ethics concerns were merged with financial issues related to my inability to work in my vocation that impacted my ability to pay tuition fees, which created a paradox in which I was unable to move forward with collaboration. In other words, I asked CIHS to help resolve my ethical concerns so that I could continue my work and studies, but CIHS informed me that I would need to continue my studies to work with them in order to resolve the issues, thereby creating a paradox. I'm still struggling with my vocational practice, having discovered that my backup plan of tech work has been undermined by the AI revolution, currently requiring the assistance of family for housing and to make ends meet, and I've been unable to pay out tuition fees. I simply cannot afford to re-enroll in order to resolve my ethical concerns. I appreciate that the administration, such as Martin, explained to me that I was becoming an ethical authority in my research, which encouraged me to trust my understanding that my ethics Ethical concerns need to be addressed by a committee or institute beyond any one expert perspective, such as myself or Esbjörn-Hargens. Therefore, I am initiating the grievance process to request resolution to my ethical concerns, specifically requesting an institutional statement in response to the questions listed in this document. Why I care about the risk of harmful false memories. After reading my concerns, I had a conversation with Martin. He initiated our conversation by asking why I cared so much about the risk of harmful false memories, which I will address after noting one concerning aspect of our conversation that I demand clarity and transparency on from the grievance committee. Martin told me a confusing story about Roswell that indicated that he believed all testimony of Roswell could be explained as a false memory because of some interaction he had with a government official who shared information with Martin. However, Martin requested that I keep the story confidential, which seemed to me like a manipulation tactic inappropriate for the seriousness of my concerns. Consequently, I request that Martin share his story in the official grievance document and explain any bias or relationship that may compromise his academic transparency and integrity. Further, Martin explained to me that CIHS would not make an institutional statement about these matters because the role of the institute is to administer research and education. However, CIHS actively endorses the New Thinking Out Loud program, which appears to be an endorsement of third-party media through a dual-role relationship with Mishlove, a faculty member. Therefore, I request a transparent accounting of the relationship between CIHS and New Thinking Out Loud, along with an explanation as to why CIHS endorses New Thinking Out Loud, but not statements to mitigate the risk of harmful false memories in human subjects. I care about the risk of harmful false memories for many reasons. First, I care because I have spent the last 5 years pursuing truth regarding UAP disclosure. While I have found evidence for extraordinary experiences and powerful testimony, I have found no objective evidence for UAP disclosure claims, much like the U.S. government's All-Domain All-Resolution Office. Rather, I found objective evidence of lies, delusions, or manipulations like I have surrounding the case of Chris Bledsoe, a primary example and advisor of the Weiser study. Further, I found literary connections between contemporary UAP claims and 1990s alien abduction research, which appropriates natural dreams and sleep phenomena like hypnagogic imagery and sleep paralysis into ET-NHI contact mythologies. There is no definitive objective evidence for UAPs and NHI encounters like clear videos or craft or beings, but there is evidence that NHI and UAP experiencers may be schizotypal, fantasy-prone, deluded, influenced by manipulative narratives, or vulnerable in other ways. Therefore, I deeply care about this issue because I know from decades of experience that careless research or statements may cause significant pain, confusion, and trauma about natural, yet powerful and uncommon dream and sleep phenomena. It must be noted that I've taken care in other writings to elaborate my hypothesis that these dream states are ultimately real, such as in my books Missing Time Found or Galithog the Gray's Field Guide to Anomalous Geometry. Further, I intend to study sleep and dream phenomena with ET-NHI contact reports. Therefore, I must ensure that the institute overseeing my dissertation is demonstrably aware of these complex issues and any ethical implications. The other reason that I care so much about the issue of truth in UAP NHI experiencer claims, especially related to Chris Bledsoe, is because of my personal experience researching a UAP sighting that Bledsoe published in his book, The UFO of God, which happened during a program that Esbjörn-Hargens and my first missing time client, Berg, participated in. The light in the sky was later identified by Michael Earle, a satellite expert and professor, as a geosynchronous satellite. I spent significant time investigating the case due to the significant promotion of this sighting as a UAP and its personal connections, documented in my article, Bledsoe's UFO of God is Likely a Satellite, Intelsat 29E. I saw the UAP as a candidate for SETI-style communication, but now see it as a misidentified satellite. I informed all participants, including Bledsoe and Esbjorn-Hargens, of my identification of mathematical patterns in its flashing, and then its later identification as a satellite by Earle, yet there has been no retraction or correction of the public record. Additionally, I was unable to find conclusive proof that Bledsoe had experienced anything other than something like delusion, confabulation, or spiritual experience. Further, I found evidence that Bledsoe could not discern between identifiable aircraft and UAP, and that he failed a polygraph test about his encounters. It made me wonder, what if all cases supporting UAP disclosure narratives are similarly confused and incorrect? The final reason why I care so much about the risk of false memories regarding ET/NHI mythology and academic statements is that I am an experiencer of the phenomena. I grew up with powerful dreams in the 1990s, which I unconsciously interpreted through the lens of UFO abduction until the literature review that I performed during my time at CIHS. In fact, a reading from the Subtle Energies 2 course provided a crucial insight that transformed my understanding. My powerful dreams respond to setting, and intention, just like a psychedelic trip. Therefore, I know for a fact that careless statements by researchers, dramatic media, or news, and social dynamics related to these topics create nightmarish experiences and a complex of real and harmful symptoms. Since many ET/NHI contact narratives involve sexual trauma, I now see any careless statement by researchers as possibly equivalent to sexual abuse of their audience, including vulnerable minors. The fact that the John E. Mack Institute is associated with WISER and the UAP studies concentration suggests the perpetuation of 1990s abduction myths through CIHS, which may be equivalent to the perpetuation of sexual abuse through identifiable persuasion techniques on the public, including minors, by the forceful interpretation of natural sleep and dream phenomena as symptoms of alien abduction or NHI UAP encounters. I care because I do not want another generation of powerful dreamers, including my own children, to go to sleep afraid of sexual abuse from mysterious visitors like I did. My engagement with CIHS about my concerns. On September 3, 2024, I submitted a 200-page document of ethical concerns regarding alien mythology in research at CIHS to Esbjörn-Hargens for his review, which I intended to submit to CIHS as justification for my leave of absence application. He advised me to rework the material into a shorter document, which I did. The appendices of the larger document, The Ethical Implications of Unquestioned Mackian Research at CIHS, document communications between all named parties as evidence for my concern. On September 10th, 2024, I submitted the 16-page document to CIHS Risk of Harmful False Memories in UAP Studies, addressed to Martin, the Dean of Research, as justification for my leave of absence. I explained that my ethical crisis regarding harmful false memories in UAP and experiencer studies caused a financial crisis such that I could no longer pay tuition because I was unable to continue my donation-based dream work and hypnosis practice in service to experiencers. The document, Risk of Harmful False Memories in UAP Studies, outlined my concerns about harmful false memories related to UAP studies and experiencer research, specifically represented by the new anomalous studies and UAP and consciousness studies concentration, and the worldwide initiative for super experiencer research. My concerns were focused on abstract and systemic issues related to UAP disclosure and experiencer narratives that appear to derive from 1990s alien abduction research influenced by John E. Mack. In addition to the abstract concerns, I presented my concern that the use of Bledsoe as a primary case study and advisor of WISER may lead to harmful false memories in human subject research at CIHS because he has a history of presenting identifiable aircraft as UAP while sharing his compelling and suggestive stories. I presented statements from the New Thinking Aloud program as examples of my concern because the program was endorsed by CIHS. Finally, I outlined a list of possible resolutions to my concerns, such as updating CIHS policies to mitigate risks of false memories and endorsing the publication of a white paper regarding ethical research methods for UAP and experiencer studies. After submitting the document, I had video conversations and email correspondence with CIHS administration and faculty, Martin, Gomes, Esbjorn-Hargens, Yegian, and Mishlove. While I sought an institutional response for a variety of reasons, Martin, Esbjorn-Hargens, and Gomes indicated that CIHS would not respond to my proposed resolutions because the Institute focused more on general administration. Rather, they indicated that the Integral Noetic Sciences Department or the Center for Anomalous and Noetic Study, both headed by Esbjorn-Hargens, are the most appropriate places to address my concerns. Gomes suggested that I collaborate with CANS to produce a white paper about UAP studies and experiencer research best practices in order for the research to continue. In discussing the logistics of the collaboration, Esbjorn-Hargens directed me to produce one-page proposals, then indicated I would need to be enrolled for official collaboration with CANS. However, I find this response to be inadequate to resolve my concerns for the reasons listed above. Consequently, I request that the CIHS administration present a plan of action that accommodates their bureaucratic needs while addressing the present risk of harmful false memories to human subjects. After all, there are only a handful of responsible individuals at CIHS, and I do not care if CIHS, CANS, INS, or whatever bureaucratic division responds to the risk, only that action is taken to mitigate the risk. My professional practice with experiencers and the risk of false memory. In my last document, I reported merged ethical and financial concerns because I had merged my professional practice with NHI, contact, and UAP disclosure narratives. When I began to question false memories, I questioned myself and unconsciously froze. I have deeply engaged in self-reflection and spiritual growth in order to address concerns in my own practice. Through the process of researching and raising my concerns, I have found a compromise that enabled me to start to practice. Personally, professionally, and academically, I believe that regression hypnosis and investigation into ETNHI contact cases is misidentified shamanic dream work, and that the misidentification is the major cause of harmful false memories. Therefore, I see the association with careless accredited research is actually the cause of risk. If the cause of harmful false memories is the misidentification of authoritative research or regression hypnosis as something other than dream work, then the solution would be clearly to identify the practice as dream work. Further, it appears that researchers can reverse false memories through sensitization and education protocols. Consequently, I shifted my practice to A, clearly identify it as dream work, B, include the risk of harmful false memories in informed consent, and C, orient my entire practice as psychospiritual and not authoritative research. In other words, I am practicing as a spiritual counselor, dream worker, or shaman, rather than as an authoritative researcher. I now understand that the risk for harmful false memories is exacerbated by authoritative research and advanced credentials. Therefore, I see my continued participation in accredited studies to be possibly an ethical liability unless I can prove that my ethical concerns are resolved, perhaps through statements and policy updates endorsed by CIHS. Questions for the Grievance Committee. As a PhD student who is still learning the academic system, I had many expectations that failed to meet reality. I expected that an appropriate response to my concerns would be to pause the survey, form a committee, update study policies with false memory research, go through another round of IRB approval, perhaps dismiss Bledsoe, and then make a few public statements. However, I found the response to my ethical concerns to be inadequate for reasons already listed. Consequently, I am initiating this grievance process to resolve my concerns. Since my previous expectations of resolution were not met, I am initiating the grievance process to request an official response from the Institute about my questions and concerns. This section lists my questions, along with some context and requests for each question. In my first round of submitting ethical concerns, I had asked the Institute to take action, but the Institute deflected responsibility back to Esbjörn-Hargens as the program director, who has not yet taken discernible action. As I understand from my conversations with Yegian about the grievance process, there will be a committee formed to produce an official statement on behalf of the Institute. The committee will then issue statements in response to my grievance document. To be clear, I'm requesting that CIHS make official statements about the liability of risk of harmful false memories in human subjects in order to protect themselves and their participants from harmful false memories and the potential for litigation as a result. Question: is there truly a risk of harmful false memories in UAP NHI studies? Why or why not? Either there is a risk of harmful false memories or there is not. I have raised concerns about harmful false memories based on literature review, personal experience of false memories, and professional experience as a hypnotist. I have found the concerns to be so significant that I stopped practicing hypnosis, thereby causing my merged financial and ethical crisis. Most CIHS staff suggest that A, they are ignorant of the complexities of UAP studies and false memories, therefore they defer to Esbjorn-Hargens, or B, there is no major concern for human subjects. However, while I do understand the risks on a personal and professional level as a hypnotist and dream worker, I do not have a clear statement or understanding of the risk in the context of accredited research or education. Therefore, I'm asking CIHS to provide a clear and direct statement regarding the risk of harmful false memories in accredited UAP experiencer studies. If CIHS defers to Esbjörn-Hargens' expertise, I would ask that they endorse a statement prepared by Esbjörn-Hargens about the risk of false memories that would satisfy the criteria for a complete term paper, specifically 3 to 6 peer-reviewed references on the topic. Question: who is liable for harm caused to human subjects related to false memories? I believe that there is a risk of harmful false memories to human subjects in UAP experiencer research, especially if care is not taken to safeguard against false memories. I've seen no specific action taken by CIHS or Esbjörn-Hargens to safeguard human subjects against the risk of harmful false memories. If a subject of WISER or any future UAP experiencer research approved by CIHS IRB would develop harmful false memories due to their participation, who would be liable for their harm? I understand that researchers have limited liability for harm caused to human subjects because of bureaucratic oversight and the idea that research is conducted in good faith. However, I understand that willful negligence of the researcher or their oversight committees may represent a breach of good faith research. This document, supported by my last ethical concerns document, informs CIHS that I see an active risk of harm to human subjects in research through false memory and similar dynamics. Therefore, it seems to me that CIHS, Esbjörn-Hargens, or the members of the grievance committees may be liable for any related harm because I have officially notified the Institute of my concerns and they have not yet been addressed. Consequently, I request an official statement from CIHS regarding who is liable for harm related to false memories possibly induced by participation in UAP studies or experiencer research at CIHS. Question: are AARO claims about fanatic believers in UAP disclosure valid? Why or why not? AARO is the official government office set up to resolve claims regarding UAP disclosure. Their 2024 report suggests that recent UAP disclosure claims derive from a small group of people with fanatic beliefs in UFOs as extraterrestrial technology. Here's a quote. AARO assesses that the inaccurate claim that the U.S. government is reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology and is hiding it from Congress is, in large part, the result of circular reporting from a group of individuals who believe this to be the case, despite the lack of any evidence. While the AARO director, Dr. Kirkpatrick, has been hesitant to name the group of individuals, it is clear that the group centers around Robert Bigelow because he was the government contractor who was reported on by the famous 2017 New York Times article that established mainstream credibility of UAP disclosure narratives. In the video presentation of an interview with Kirkpatrick, reporter Greenstreet named several members of the group, which included 3 WISER advisors, Calais, who no longer appears as an advisor, Keene, and Nolan. If the official position of the U.S. government about UAP disclosure is valid, then I must pose the question, is the WISER study advised by UAP fanatics who selectively reject scientific evidence in favor of extraterrestrial mythology? Consequently, I request that CIHS, CANS, or INS leadership make statements disambiguating the WISER advisory board from the UAP fanatics implied by Kirkpatrick and named by Greenstreet, such as Keene and Nolan. Additionally, I would request the courtesy of a statement disambiguating CIHS-associated studies and research from Bigelow's activity or influence in UAP studies and experiencer research for several reasons. First, Bigelow is central to UAP disclosure narratives and is a primary funder of consciousness studies, as implied by the AARO report. Consequently, the concentration name, UAP and consciousness studies, implies a theoretic tie to Bigelow or Bigelow-influenced UAP disclosure narratives. The fact that Calais was listed as an early advisor is literary proof of the connection. Second, the WISER study is proposed to be the 3rd major ETNHI experiencer study in the literature, which began with a Bigelow-funded unusual events survey that was published in the 1992 booklet Unusual Personal Experiences and mailed to 100,000 mental health workers by the Bigelow Holding Corporation. Based on my research, client work, and personal experience, this booklet and its promotion is the cause for significant induction of harmful false memories of alien abduction. Consequently, I request clarity as to how WISER or CIHS IRB committees will mitigate the risk of harmful false memories given the influence of Bigelow and the Unusual Events Survey on UAP studies and experiencer research. Question: why is Bledsoe a primary case study and advisor of the WISER study when there is such delusion or deception as I have documented with his UAP sighting at the Monroe Institute. Even if the Wiser Advisory Board and the greater CIHS community is free from the circular reporting group of individuals who will not see scientific evidence at the center of UAP disclosure narratives, the presence of Bledsoe as an example and advisor of Wiser suggests that there is no effective filter or check against fanatic belief or delusion in the study participants or advisors. Although CIHS acknowledges Esbjörn-Hargens as the leader of the Wiser study, the Institute and its IRB does hold an ethical and legal obligation to ensure the safety of human subjects, which I have warned may be jeopardized by fanatic belief or careless research practices. Earl identified the famous UAP as a satellite in January 2024, and I forwarded the information to all related parties. Bledsoe was informed that Earl identified the Monroe UAP as a satellite but has not corrected the record and continued to publish his book unchanged. Esbjorn-Hargens has been aware of the identification of the satellite, yet continues to promote Bledsoe as an example and as an advisor. When I confronted Esbjorn-Hargens about Bledsoe, he suggested that Bledsoe was ontologically generous, and that the generosity might be a requirement for the experience of the phenomena. Therefore, I am concerned that the academic integrity of Wiser and perhaps Esbjorn-Hargens has been compromised by some unacknowledged arrangement with Bledsoe. Consequently, I request that CIHS, as the institution employing Esbjorn-Hargens and providing ethical oversight of the Wiser study, investigate the relationship of Bledsoe, the Wiser study, and Esbjorn-Hargens for any academically compromising arrangement. For example, Bledsoe connected Esbjorn-Hargens with the Danny Jones podcast, which yielded significant publicity for the Wiser study and the INS department. Question: will CIHS confirm or deny Esbjorn-Hargens' promotion of the experiencer group as a safe space for abductees on CIHS-endorsed media? If or if not, why? I have raised concerns that harmful false memories of alien abduction or ETNHI encounters may be caused by a decentralized and primarily unconscious social system involving support groups, hypnotists, researchers, and content producers. Media about ETNHI contact may suggest that natural sleep and dream phenomena, which are often associated with fear and nightmarish experiences, are actually traumatic because they may be seen as evidence for ETNHI contact. Schizotypal, fantasy-prone, or otherwise vulnerable people may respond to the media, then seek out a group hypnosis or to report their experiences. Their interactions may generate false memories understood as real memories because the supporter or media producer is unaware of false memories, sleep paralysis, or best practices regarding vulnerable population. I'm concerned about the experiencer group for several reasons and bring forward my concerns because Esbjorn-Hargens recommended them as a safe space for experiencers on CIHS-endorsed media, which was in direct contradictions to concerns I held about false memories that he has been aware of since April 5th, 2024. The group was publicized by Blumenthal as a modern-day abductee group presenting testimony of its founders to support UAP disclosure narratives. The group was founded by professional media production and content creators, not support professionals, with whom Esbjorn-Hargens is friends. The situation, to my eyes, seems like a recipe for priming or induction of traumatic and harmful alien false memories. Since the group was recommended by a dean of CIHS on CIHS media to CIHS faculty, I request that CIHS make an official statement to support or deny Esbjorn-Hargens' endorsement of the group. I request an official institutional response because Esbjorn-Hargens has personal connection with the group that may cause bias. Question: what steps will CIHS officially take to mitigate the risk of harmful false memories in UAP studies and experiencer research? I now officially inform CIHS that UAP studies and experiencer research as conducted during my time at CIHS appears to me to risk harmful false memories in human subjects. I hold an MA in East-West Psychology, 2 hypnosis healing certificates, have conducted dozens of ETNHI missing time regression sessions, am an experiencer of the phenomena myself, and have held a 4.0 GPA during my time at CIHS. In my ethical concerns document, I identified my concerns as abstract and systemic out of respect and courtesy for Esbjorn-Hargens and CIHS. This grievance letter escalates my concerns. I now say that human subjects of the Wiser study are actively at risk of harmful false memories. Further, I say that accredited and explicit research into UAPs and NHIs within the context of UAP disclosure claims also risk harmful false memories unless clear and documented steps have been taken to mitigate these risks. Finally, I now raise concerns of academic integrity through conflict of interest related to Esbjörn-Hargens' relationship with Chris Bledsoe and perhaps the John E. Mack Institute. While it might seem trivial to be concerned about a single web page with a small survey, I say that the question, "Are you a super experiencer?" may be a leading question, which has been overloaded with unconscious implications of traumatic alien abduction primed by individuals like Chris Bledsoe or organizations like the John E. Mack Institute, which are clearly associated with the study. Further, the informed consent of this study is priming towards traumatic memories of anomalous experiences, but does not mention false memories. Either my concerns are valid and action must be taken, or else my concerns are invalid and action need not be taken. I raised my concerns 6 months ago, and CIHS suggested a resolution through a collaboration that is impossible for me to participate in. The Weiser study continues with no mention of false memories and its informed consent. Bledsoe is still listed as an advisor and an example, and I'm still unclear why or how the experiencer group mitigates obvious false memory risks. Therefore, I must assume that CIHS has not seen my concerns as valid and urgent. Consequently, I request that CIHS, as an institute, take action to mitigate the risk of harmful false memories, or else inform me why my concerns are invalid. Conclusion. After raising my concerns with CIHS, I sought ways to return to active practice with experiencers through my dream work and hypnosis services. My hope was to resolve my ethical concerns through conversation with CIHS as an ethical authority of UAP studies and experiencer research conducted in the INS department. I assume that CIHS faculty, as ethical experts on human subject research, would quickly and easily dispel my concerns by presenting documentation of their consideration regarding harmful false memories, which I had hoped would hold as many references to peer-reviewed literature as required for a term paper. Further, I had hoped to add 1 or 2 sentences to the research policy and student handbooks that required researchers to follow the International Association of the Study of Dreams ethics for ETNHI contact research, because at least in research literature, these phenomena are primarily defined in terms of dreams. Finally, I had requested support for the unique aspects of my research. However, CIHS leadership indicated that Esbjorn-Hargens and myself were responsible for resolving my concerns through a collaboration that is officially impossible until I resolve my vocational crisis to pay the fees necessary for collaboration. But why should I have to pay to resolve risk to human subjects in research that the CIHS IRB approved? I hold a 4.0 GPA at CIHS, so why have my concerns been essentially ignored? If my perspective is invalid, then what value does an education at CIHS have? I was told that CIHS faculties are experts in ethical research, so why is it so hard to find proof that CIHS, INS, CANS, or Esbjorn-Hargens is aware of and has mitigated the risk of harmful false memories in UAP and experiencer research? Consequently, I request clear and direct statements about the risk of harmful false memories in UAP studies and experiencer research at CIHS. If my ethical concerns are not met with the seriousness and urgency that they deserve, I will take drastic steps to resolve my concerns about risk to human subjects of research at CIHS, which is also a risk for the public audience of authoritative statements regarding UAP experiencer studies. My actions may include escalating my concerns to the press or watchdog organizations, discussion with legal counsel, or registering a complaint with the accreditation board. Therefore, I urge the Grievance Committee to urgently and seriously consider my request and concerns to safeguard the audience and human subjects of UAP studies and experiencer research at CIHS against the risk of harmful false memories. Right, so that was the document I sent about a month ago to CIHS to explain where I'm at. And this document, I hope, was not unclear. I have not seen a clear direct action taken. I submitted the email. I received a receipt from the Dean of Student Success and Dr. Esbjörn-Hargens saying, hey, we received it, we're reviewing it. 10 days later, I received notice that the grievance committee has met to review my concerns. And so that was, I don't know, that was probably 3 weeks ago. And so that is important because we're following the grievance procedure put forward in the student handbook. And basically it says, hey, if you have a grievance, you have 6 months to complain about it. So I 5.5 months in, I write my grievance documentation, I send it to them, and they received it. They have 10 days to go through an informal process of resolution. They can take informal steps to resolve it. They go. And for me, that kind of informal resolution would be going, hey, yeah, we'll update the policies with reference to the International Association of the Study of Dreams ethical guidelines for dream research. Hey, we'll agree to make the sort of authoritative statement. Hey, it's okay for you to collaborate with CANs outside of active enrollment, right? I mean, after all, Bledsoe doesn't have a degree, and he's a advisor. So why not establish me in that sort of relationship as opposed to me having to pay them to resolve my ethical concerns? So those would be informal actions. Nothing was taken at all whatsoever. No action whatsoever. No invitation for collaboration or conversation on this topic. They waited 10 days. They sent me a letter, perhaps maybe 11 days afterwards, sort of thing, saying, hey, we're reviewing your concerns. Now, I phrased it in such a way that it regards risk to human subjects, and I've explained why I think there's a risk to human subjects of research that the IRB of CIHS approved. And no immediate action has been taken, right? So I now can make a deduction, right? So the grievance committee met to review, and we can pull that up exactly when. Let me do that so I'm not just speaking out of. Yep, I received on Friday, February 21st at 7:58 a.m. Naira Yegian, the Dean of Student Success, let me know, hey, we are reviewing your request. So that's the 21st, and it is now the 14th of March, the next month. So that's about 3 weeks, right? They have 3 weeks. They reviewed it. No action was taken. Like, I checked out the informed consent on the experience or research page, nothing. No statements have been made. They've not provided me any information. They've not taken steps to informally resolve it. Basically, my understanding now is they can sit on this, according to their documentation, for 60 working days, and at which point they can issue a decision of the committee and let me know what they decide. After which point I have 10 days to respond. However, I am now 7 months in to raising concern of risk to human subjects at CIHS through the WISER study, primarily through several mechanisms, multiple mechanisms I've documented. There's a priming effect associated with Bledsoe. Bledsoe appears to be a liar. We're not correcting the record. There's no checks about delusion in the survey. There's no validation or retraction of improper statements by researchers. What's actually going on? So nothing is actually happening. So that leaves me in a funny position because I've invested 2 years and 2 years of my time in this program. I've invested 2 years of tuition fees in this program. I've put my name toward credulous research and the belief in UAP disclosure, and I still believe in UFOs. I still believe in extraterrestrial contact. I just don't believe in research based on lies and manipulations that do not demonstrate concern for risk of harmful false memories to human subjects. And I think the concern for human subjects should come above the possibility of what we could discover with UFOs, because we're not actually studying UFOs. right? Like, what is a UFO? Well, how do you study it, right? What we need to resolve what we're studying from an unknown phenomena to an actually a known phenomena, right? I can study false memories. I can study confabulation. I can study delusion. It's really easy. You go, oh, hey, this guy is claiming a satellite, Intelsat E, is the UFO of God. Wow, that's amazing. He's making those claims. Why is he making those claims? That's fascinating. Why are academics who are surrounding him making those claims too, even though there's no proof, even though objectively it's a satellite? Isn't that fascinating that such smart individuals can contort themselves to such jargony kind of statements as Chris Bledsoe is ontologically generous and that generosity might be necessary to be an experiencer of the phenomena. I am an experiencer of the phenomena. I work with experiencers of the phenomena. Delusion is not necessary to be an experiencer. Confabulation is not necessary to be an experiencer, nor are lies and manipulations necessary to be an experiencer of the phenomena or to study that. Actually, we need to correct the academic record. Objectively, the UFO of God seen at the Monroe Institute by Bledsoe was a satellite. He made the claim it was something more. He made the claim it was the UFO of God, a vehicle of angels, a demonstration of faith, or something like that. And we can't stand for that. I mean, if it's a religious claim, that's fine. But if he's a primary case study and advisor to accredited research that I'm in part paying for to do, I'm adding my credibility to this program. I'm adding my effort, energy, money, I used to that program, then there's a different standard. And I need to be able to ask these questions. And I need an institution that will respond to legitimate concerns of regarding the risk of harm to human subjects, right? Like, what's going on here? That's my question. What is going on? Why has no action been taken? I've kindly said, I was just shocked. There's no, I mean, my first documents and things like that were very careful to not imply academic misconduct, right? Academic misconduct. There's clearly a mistake here. I clearly missed the white paper that Sean wrote about harmful false memories. I clearly missed some documentation from the John E. Mack Institute, but I didn't. I've asked those people this. I'm in it. I've been asking those questions for years. I've corresponded with Blumenthal. I've corresponded with the archivist at John E. Mack Institute. I've gone through so much stuff, and really all that would have shifted my concerns is as much research about false memories as I did for a term paper, right? Like 6 references to peer-reviewed materials about false memories, but I can't actually find that. Only one person at CIHS provided me any documentation, any information, any proof that they had even read about false memories, and that was Dr. Mishlev. He provided me a response from the 90s or like early aughts about false memory claims and Loftus, right? So from a parapsychologist, right? So he pointed to an article from a parapsychologist about it, and I said, thank God, that's all I'm asking for is just a dialogue. We don't need to get to the answers. We just need to talk about it. I started out talking about concerns of UAP disclosure and about psionics and things like that. I'm actually really concerned about this. I'm seeing Dr. Sean and Bledsoe participate in psionics panels at the Ubiquity University, which is unaccredited. It's self-accredited. There's no standard there. There's actually no academic standard in this dialogue, even though some academics are participating in it. And I find it challenging because I bet on academia with this. I bet on integral studies. I bet on CIHS, and they are not leading in the race. There's no leader of academic integrity here. It is, as far as I'm concerned, the accreditation of CIHS is as worth as much as the accreditation of Ubiquity University, primarily because if they can't handle these concerns regarding the risk of harmful false memories now, from me raising them, how will they respond when people like Mick West or Steve Cambion or stronger skeptics like there used to be Philip Klass, like what happened? How will they respond, right, when watchdog organizations actually look into their material? They will fold. They do not have a solid foundation. I wanted to help them build that solid foundation 6 months ago. That's why I sent these documents in a way that was kind and patient and gave them room to save face. But they've ignored me for 6 months, and they're ignoring me now, even though I've provided the strongest level of documentation of my grievance to them as possible, right? If they thought my concerns were valid, they would respond differently. They would take action, right? They have taken no discernible action to safeguard human subjects of their research against the risk of harmful false memories. We're talking about UFOs. We're talking about super experiencers of the phenomena of non-human intelligence contact. That's a euphemism for alien abduction, period. So they are shopping around a dangerous mythology in order to do something I am not sure what they're doing, but it is not accredited research, and it is not being an institute. They have time. They have 60 working days in my book, probably 50 working days right now, to give me a full adequate response. That would be according to the letter of their law. But at some point, I need to see different action from this school, from the institute that approved human subject research under the advice of Chris Bledsoe. I say it's dangerous. Now, one of the reasons, okay, so I need to actually bring this in. One of the reasons why I'm so concerned at this point. One of the reasons why I'm so concerned about this point is because we're dealing with vulnerable populations. These are schizotypal people. They are fantasy prone, right? People who respond to Chris Bledsoe are not grounded in insanity, let's say. Even if they are, their extraordinary experiences make them vulnerable to a number of different issues, right? They're vulnerable because they stand outside. They don't know how to make sense of it. They're trying to make sense of these extraordinary experiences. It's just a lot to deal with. And the literature says that they're actually likely schizotypal, meaning they're vulnerable people, right? So we're dealing with vulnerable people. Dr. Sean is looking to bring in 5,000 vulnerable people to talk about their extraordinary experiences within authoritative, accredited research space, right? And those people he's working with and targeting are people who come from his personal connection with Bledsoe, right? The media placements he's gotten in part are because of Chris Bledsoe. And the people that respond to the survey are because of that. And they're now talking to an authoritative researcher who says, oh, that's fascinating. Let's talk about it. If you tell me a good enough story, I'm going to invite you into CIHS and put a magic hat on you and understand that your Caudet Pataumen is way bigger than the Muggles' Caudet Pataumens, right? If you don't know what that means, look up Gary Nolan's research, but it basically says, hey, if you scan an experiencer's brain, they have a bigger thing in there that might be connected with the third eye or intuition or whatever. And so basically the situation is set up to receive 5,000 people who are responding to Bledsoe's narrative. And it's going to filter down to maybe 100 or 500 people that will be interviewed, and then perhaps a dozen or 3 dozen people that will be scanned through medical experiences. So there's a sense of pyramid scheme, kind of get through the funnel. It's like if you actually can tell a story good enough, right? You too can be featured in this authoritative research that's being discussed on fancy podcasts and things like that. You too can do that, right? People actually respond to that sort of stuff. I know because I write books. I know because I'm a hypnotist. People respond and they offer their traumatic stories and they sense in, what do you want to hear? Do you want to hear that I care more about my own personal healing, or do you want to hear more about the traumatic events? I always go to the healing. I always go to the healing, insight, and transformation. That's what I do as a practitioner. But some people might just get stuck at the traumatic stories and elucidate those. And the more you talk about it, the more they come up. So it's a sort of self-reinforcing system. Now, this is problematic in general, but when we have examples like that of Christopher Gray, and Chris Bledsoe. So Christopher Gray is a challenging story, and you might want to just take a few moments. This is triggering, right? He's a paranoid schizophrenic. He was obsessed with UFO Twitter, and he stabbed his father while ranting about the lady and the Bledsoes and live streaming it to Twitter and tagging all these, UFO researchers there. That's an issue. This is what happened in the community. It happened once. It's going to happen again. Something crazy like that. It shouldn't be a surprise when it happens. And when it happens, and if it happens with a wiser participant, I'm going to let everyone know at CIHS and everyone know in the world that they were warned about the risk of harmful false memory. They were warned about this. They knew about this. They knew about this and chose not to act. Right? That's what the documentation I have says. I'm a CIHS student, a 4.0. You can ask them about that. I participated in advising or working on the wiser study through the anomalous research practicum. I know that they have not taken adequate action to safeguard their human subjects against the risk of harmful false memory. And I'm not saying that this research leads to heinous crimes like what I talked about with Christopher Gray, but I'm saying it's not out of the realm of possibility, and it's something that we should talk about actively. It's something that the IRB should be aware of before they approve research. And I don't know if they're actually aware of any of these things. I don't know how far they've metabolized my concern document or anything like that. I haven't seen action. I'm waiting on it. I can't wait another 50 calendar days to decide whether or not I'm going to talk about it. I'm talking about it now because I know for a fact that Dr. Sean Esbjörn-Hargens is talking about psionics with Chris Bledsoe at Ubiquity University. And I know for a fact that Dr. Stacy Gomes, the provost of CIHS, went to the first summit on YouTube and said, "Great job, Dr. Sean." So I know they have enough time to evaluate claims related to Bledsoe, but I haven't seen really that they've demonstrated enough time to evaluate my claims. A student, a 4.0 GPA student, their first student that decided to take them up on their offer to study UFOs and non-human intelligence contact within an accredited institute. And I've come to these kind of concerns. I just need to talk about it, and they're not talking. So what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? Right. I've shared this document. I've let them know. What should I do next? Right. My decision has been to mostly focus on dreams. I go back to the dream work. That's why I started the D-SETI podcast, is to talk about lucid dreams. That's why I'm focusing when I work on Dreamwell. That's why I'm focusing on dream work with other people. And yet this is on my heart. I cannot, in good conscience, continue without raising my voice. I've done so within the context of CIHS. I've given them enough time to get their house in order, to respond, to get a new job, right? To get a new job. Dr. Sean has a new job, right? I raised the concerns. The next community meeting is, I'm getting a new job. I have a second full-time job. You go, are you backing out of this situation? What is going on, right? So I don't know what to do next. I don't know what to do now. I don't want to raise my concerns further. I don't want to. I would love if they responded appropriately. I would love if they responded in line with their student handbook, right? I haven't seen any action of informal resolution to this. No one, I don't know. I have to ask them. Did you do an informal resolution? Was that actually even done? Right? Like, did you even consider how to resolve this? What are the considerations going on with this? I mean, there's a risk to human subjects. I've not even seen it acknowledged, right? So, what would you think I should do? I'm asking my people on YouTube and social media, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? I am so concerned about this stuff. It keeps me up at night. I hate talking about this. I hate researching this. I don't want to try to validate. Well, what sort of information does Steve Cambion have about Christopher Gray? Can I actually, is there actually documentation I can present to this grievance committee to evaluate the risk? That would help them, but I have to actually go like, what's the documentation and where? So I don't know what to do next, and I need help, and I need to work with institutes. I need to work with institutes on this. I need to work with cultural institutes. It's not enough for a lone independent scholar to labor away on this stuff. We need an institutional and academic response. And if I can't get one from CIHS, I will find an academic institutional response where I can. And that looks like the accreditation board above them if they don't respond. And I don't want to do that because I would like to continue going to school. I would like to have a PhD. I'd like to do this research, but I actually just can't continue. And it's such a concern to me. So I'm speaking out. I'm sharing this information. I'm asking for help. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Thank you for hearing my concerns. Thank you for holding space while I tell this story. Thank you for being willing to explore some of these hard issues. And with that, I will just wish you all the best, and may you come back to yourself. May you discover that you are whatever you're seeking in UFO disclosure. And you're enough. You're psionic. Whatever your heart says is true, follow that. Follow that intuition, right? Follow that intuition. Don't look outside of yourself for the psionic people, the whistleblowers. They don't have the answers you seek because they simply have manipulative media they're bringing forward. That's what it looks like to me. And I don't know. I don't know what to do next. And I suppose maybe we're in it together. So with that, may you dream well.